Welcome, warriors.
Yay! I'm actually glad you didn't sing. I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, Abby's very sleepy today, warriors.
Yes, I got
We're
woken
having...
up by a dream dog, a dog dreaming and barking at 3 a.m. She was having a really good dream. It sounded fun, you know.
Dream Dog sounds like it would have been an awesome like toy in the 90s,
Yeah.
right? That we'd be asking for the holidays.
Dream dog,
Look at
wherever
you.
you
Now
go,
you're singing.
I go. Yeah, because I knew a song that could sound like Dream Dog.
There you go.
My
We knew
buddy.
that. I knew that you'd gain the energy to sing something today.
Yeah, I mean, I need
We
that.
have to sing something.
Something.
Each, if it's just at least one of us has to sing something. So there you go. You did it. Now I don't have to.
Or maybe at some point you'll throw in a song too.
I would not be shocked. I don't think our audience would be shocked if that were to happen. Yeah. All right, warriors. We are re-exploring not one, but two former topics.
Mm-hmm.
Like putting a little bit of like a new flavor, a new spin on it, and offering up a little update on some of the feelings and some of the stuff that goes on around these two topics. And the first one is boundaries.
Yeah, baby.
And yeah, boundaries, baby. And the second one is people pleasing. And as we know, these two things can often go hand in hand for us anxiety warriors, because when we don't have strong boundaries, when we don't set them and then remain consistent with them, it's usually because that part of our brain that is used to people pleasing and not wanting to be rejected, or that part of our brain that's worried about how we're going to be perceived by others, or, you know, if people aren't going to want to know us anymore or be our friend or in our communities or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when we're activated in that way, right, then it's like all the anxious like sirens go off in my brain, at least.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we thought that it would be fun. I don't know if fun's the right word.
Yeah.
I thought it would be good to revisit this topic because we talked about both of these topics way back. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Was it episode 3 and episode 7, right? 7 and 8? I think I'm right.
Oh my God. I think you are right. Yeah. Yeah.
This is how far
pleasing. And when people pleasing becomes toxic, that was 7 and 8.
And I believe that the first one was episode
boundaries.
3.
It was like
3.
Boundaries. Oh my, bears, boundaries.
Yes.
Oh something. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well done.
So what we're saying is that we talked about these topics way too many months and literal years ago. And we still have feelings about them.
Yeah, we haven't mastered it yet.
Still waiting to master literally everything. I just thought of that meme. I'm sure many of our warriors will know, and I think you'll know. It's just like, you know, when the teacher is waiting for all the kids to be quiet and it just shows a picture of a skeleton at a desk.
Yeah.
That's us, warriors that are waiting to like completely heal all the parts of ourselves.
Right.
So we master things like, you know, communication with other human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've gotten better. I'll give us that.
100%. I believe that I'll speak for me. I believe that I have in so many ways.
Samesies.
Goodness. Okay. So I'm going to share that lately, for the past few years, but especially the last several months, I've been receiving messages on Instagram from people that are not in my community, or people that are brand new to my community. And when I say brand new, I mean like within a week or two, maybe a month at most, or they're complete strangers altogether. Like someone that, you know, if they follow me, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I get a DM and it's
right.
Like,
they don't comment, they don't like, they don't share and tag you. So you have no idea.
I have no context about who these people are. And I think this next part is a me problem.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I have a certain level of expectations for the way I conduct myself on social media.
Yeah.
And one of those things is if I'm planning to reach out to anyone in their DMs, I have a whole process of what I feel is correct and comfortable, at least comfortable for me, maybe not correct, right? Correct for me, comfortable for me, in terms of like how long I have to know a person, meaning that I've been following them I've been, engaging with them in their posts and their stories. Maybe if they have a product or a service-based business, I have purchased, or I have made clear that I am interested in said service or product or whatever. And I get to know more than just their first name, again, based on knowing them for a little while. And for every account, it's a little different. Like there'll be some accounts where I'm like, all right, in a few weeks, I feel like I know this person pretty well. Or maybe this person's adjacent to my community in some way. So even if I didn't follow them, they are friends with a lot of my friends, right? Air quotes around friends, but like, you know what I mean? Followers. And so I'm able to get a good idea of who they are, a good sense, not without letting go of all the other things I just said. I still do all of those other things.
Yeah.
And especially if I'm going to ask someone for something that I feel like is going to benefit me only. And even I feel like it's mutually beneficial. That's only mutually beneficial in my mind. And so I try not to make the assumption that whatever it is I'm going to suggest or ask of or whatever is going to feel mutually beneficial to the person I'm speaking to, right?
Yeah.
Most of these people I'm talking about too are fellow small business owners of some kind.
Or even, I'm just going to add podcast guests. Like sometimes you are like, hey, I found this person on Instagram. They're really super cool. Like Jesse, right?
Yeah.
And you took like a little bit, you followed his account, and you're like,
I had been following his account for a while.
And you liked his vibe, and he talks about mental health, right? So, but you and I talked about, like you're very intentional and thoughtful, right? Even asking if someone wants to be a guest. Right. It's even like that. Like, I feel like, I don't know. I feel I've never been told otherwise, that it's like icky or something, or doesn't feel right. No. So I'm hopeful that I'm never coming off as like pitching someone in a creepy way or being salesy or yucky. Right. You're not like,
I'm hopeful.
Your life's going to change. Right.
Yes. Right. And so like, part of me is like, hey, Margot, that's some of your own expectations, right? When it comes to how I conduct myself, I'm just like in the mode of like, everyone should be doing it this way because this feels right to me.
I mean, it sounds like treat others the way you want to be treated. It sounds like you're embodying the way you want to be also treated. You treat others the way you want to be treated.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the problem is that when I receive a message that feels a little salesy or yucky, or or it feels like, hey, it would be fun if you do this for me, and I get nothing out of it, or anyway, it just the people's approach winds up feeling kind of personal to me, and I understand that that's something that so it made me think like, all right, that's something I need to become more clear about, right?
Yeah.
With my community on Instagram or whatever, right? Or it doesn't have to be just about Instagram. That's kind of what instigated the conversation you and I had before we decided we would chat more about this. But it was a good like light bulb in my mind of like, oh, what's going on with, the communication that you need to be maybe presenting to folks in terms of what your expectations are for how you'd like people to address you, right? In these types of communications, like people's DMs or whatever. And it's like, I'm not sure how I would go about building that boundary.
Well, there's not enough space on Instagram to say this is how these are the relationships I'm looking for. There's not,
right. Because like, even if I were to like make a whole post or like dozens of stories about it, that doesn't mean that this person or any number of people are ever going to see that. Right.
No.
And so, and that goes to my second point. It's about creating the culture of that. It's about taking the time to make that evident, right? Like if you go to my page, it's like in short order, you're going to know Margot loves cookies, right? Boom.
Right.
Margot likes to read a lot. She's got a lot of children's books. Margot is a children's yoga and mindfulness teacher, right? Like there are a good amount of things that people that follow me for more than say a couple of days are going to be able to see just by doing any amount of like looking or research, quote unquote. And so what popped into my mind was just kind of like, when I'm receiving these messages from people, my immediate feelings are sadness, rage, annoyance. And like part of me wants to just be like, well, who the fuck do you think you are? Why,
Yeah.
and just like go at them.
Hi, nice to
Yeah.
meet you.
Nice to meet you. And even if it's someone that I've air quotes met, like meaning that we've had maybe a couple of interactions or whatever, yeah. And so I feel like without getting even deeper into this ramble, it just gave me such pause where I was just like, I need to reevaluate and revisit how I create a culture of comfortable, safe communication, right? In my orbit. And that includes social media. That includes work emails and in my friends and family units. And I need to think about how I have a little bit of guilt and shame when I respond to people, right? In a way that might feel like it's maybe not great for them. Like I'm already worried about my people pleasing when I say something. And so I'm like, wow, I really still need so much work around these two things when it comes to this particular little niche.
Yeah.
And that's communicating, my needs and expectations around communication, and what's like acceptable communication with me in this echo chamber of my social media. Right. Does any of this make sense?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like the first thought I have like a lot of thoughts, but the first thought I have is like, no, I have two thoughts at the same time. So I'm going to say the other one first. I think that if this was like your personal page that wasn't connected to your work, you have similar but different feelings. But I think that it adds a layer of complexity when responding to people because you are a business and you want to be professional and you are networking and you want to connect and you don't want to just like cut people off because you just don't know where a relationship might lead to.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
My brain is slow. It's on a slow processing. And so that was like the one thought I had. And at the same time, I had a thought of like, what if you had just at least for Instagram, right? Because yes, you trickled this into other areas too, right? But maybe just starting with Instagram where you had a go-to response. Like, what do you actually want from these interactions? Like, hey, like, thanks for checking out my page and reaching out. Like, I definitely appreciate that. Yeah. Here's what I'm looking for in relationship building on Instagram, right? Like blah, 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 blah. Right. So you're like opening the door. Like I would never do this. You're much kinder to people. I'm like, fuck off. You're a stranger. You might be danger. Don't talk to me.
You might be danger.
Yeah, I mean, not even danger like in stranger danger, but danger in like you might be an energy sucker, right? Like I just feel like that behavior is unique. Like to just start following someone and then asking them for stuff screams to me energy sucker, energy vampire, right? Like I don't so for me I'm like but I understand the flip side where being kinder can, attract more bees, right? Isn't that the
it's like you catch more bees with honey than you do vinegar or something like that.
Yeah. I just
or catch more flies. Catch more flies, not bees.
Okay. Oh,
I said catch more bees with honey. Hello, bees make honey. Catch more flies with honey. I think that's it.
But so like my thought is like maybe that would at least help you so you don't have to like overthink it, right? Because even if someone is asking about your book or someone is asking about classes or someone is this or that, oh, tell me how you first got into a school, right? Oh, tell me like my kid is doing this. What should I do? Like maybe you just have like a blanket go-to response for the type of community you're trying to connect with on Instagram versus like responding to their actual thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like a lot of times I do wind up pulling, like when you first started talking, I do wind up pulling a lot of the same sentences show up in my mind and I type them out the same. But then it's about figuring out when is it time to create the boundary? Like just now that you mentioned something like, oh, how did you first get into a school or my child's experiencing X, right? So then I'm deciding, okay, how much information, how much time do I have right now? B, is this a question that I feel equipped to tackle, right? That's kind of like what, and then if I don't, I'll just say that point blank and then we move on, right? If it is something I feel like I'm equipped to tackle, and I have the energy for the information, a lot of times I will just freely give it, right?
Yeah.
If I have a moment for it. And so like that's my problem. And then like the next time I'm like, I don't have fucking time for this. And so I'm like, then all of a sudden I have this glorious boundary, right? And like it feels fine and normal. The next person, it feels awful to hold this boundary, right? And so like it's for me, I think it's going to wind up being that I need to figure out how to be consistent with everyone, right? No matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, it's going to be, I think it's just going to take more effort from me on the back end of like maybe making a list of 5 things that are like my oh no no's, like never going to go there, never going to do it. And here's how I can say it to people if and when they ask. And then have my list of 5 things maybe that are like, maybe yes, sometimes maybe no other times. And so what's like my strategy for handling those situations? Maybe it's I'm good to respond and help you out as long as it's before 8 p.m. like or something like that, you know? Because a lot of times it's about my time on the internet or my time on Instagram or whatever.
Right.
And that's just one example. So like I think for me it's going to be about just having to do more to create myself to create more success for it by remaining or finding what's going to be sustainable and more easily consistent for everyone. Like because not every situation is going to warrant the same response, but I can remain consistent in what are like my hard lines and what are soft lines.
How does it feel when you say that? Because when you said I don't know how you said it, but you're like, I think what I need to do is be consistent. Right. Yeah. You're like, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do this. Sometimes I feel this, sometimes I feel that. I need to be consistent. Like when you said that, like I felt something. Like
what was it?
Way. Like it felt powerful from you. I felt the boundary when you were like, I should be consistent. Like I felt something, right?
Yeah.
So like when you think about actually like following through and being consistent, like does anything change for you? Do you feel any different or are you just like
I feel stronger. I feel like I can do this and it doesn't matter. The people pleasing part falls away a little bit. Yeah, definitely. I think I feel stronger in it.
Yeah.
Like if it's consistent, no matter what the person wants or asks for, or what is being asked of me or whatever, then it becomes at that point just a core value. And like I have all of these things, like we all do as humans, right? We all, especially us warriors, we all have our values, our core values, the things that we know are wrong in our gut. And we try not to steer from that. And I'm not talking about things that like we're a little bit afraid of and so we don't try them or whatever. I'm talking about things that are like in your body, you viscerally know this is wrong, this feels wrong, it's not for me.
Right.
And so it's just going to be about finding the consistency in not just creating the boundary, because as we talked about, creating the boundary is easy. It's maintaining it. It's being consistent, right?
Yeah.
The hard part isn't saying, I don't like when that person does X or says X to me on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell them, hey, when I'm asking whatever, like you said something before that kind of made me think it's like, oh, when I'm looking for community on Instagram, this is kind of what I'm looking for. That's like being proactive while also hopefully not educating, but like letting that person know, letting that person know how you feel about maybe what's going on right now. Right.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that part is maybe a little less tricky. It's going to be about when that person tests that boundary, what happens, right? And then like, let's just say you become friends and you get to know them really well. And then does it change?
Yeah.
Right? Do you suddenly, and maybe it does, right? And that's something that you have to consider. All of us do, right?
Right.
As your relationship with a person changes, then your boundaries with them might have to change.
Yeah. I mean, especially if it's both sided, right?
Yeah.
Like if the friendship is nourishing, but if it's one-sided where the one person is constantly trying to get stuff from you, then no.
Like then it's not a friendship anyway.
Exactly.
That's just a transactional relationship. Yeah. So I think, I mean, I don't know. I felt like when this came up, it was like a hybrid of all of these things.
Yeah.
And also into a little bit of like our salesy episode,
Mhm.
right? And just like
Mhm.
how we both feel about selling for ourselves and
Mhm.
or being sold to. And
Mhm.
all of that's kind of been showing back up in me way more in the last few months than it has in the prior, like since we recorded those episodes,
Right.
basically, which was like, again, I think people pleasing, no, not people pleaser. Our sales episodes were like in the late 20s. They were still in their
Yeah.
early days of our
Yeah.
podcast,
Mhm.
you know? And so since then, it's gotten so much better. And I felt so strong. But these last few months have, I don't know. But I think
Well,
that's just a good reminder of like the ebb and flow of who we are too, and
yeah.
like the seasons of our life. Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, like, you've shown me these messages. And like, for me, I get like outraged over it. I'm like, how dare they? Right. Like, it's like such a, like, I just feel like Instagram is such a one-sided give me, give me, give me. Like, I think that most people forget that everything they see on Instagram is made free by the people, unless they have like 1 million followers and then they
Right.
get the paid promotion, they get this and that. But most of the stuff that you see on Instagram that is created by creators is them donating their time to that thing, and the expectation that the creators then should help other people out for free is absurd.
Yeah, it really is. But then right. So then it's just like when I go through the roller coaster of the emotions, when I receive a message like that, and being infuriated is up there and the emotions. Um, my next several thoughts after I get past like the red rage is just like, but my response is not going to be reflective of that rage. And should it? Like sometimes I wish I could, like earlier, we were talking about how we received an email about a potential guest on our podcast. And a lot of times when we get these emails, you and I both joke about and talk about how we would address it differently. Or I'll go into our email account and I'll read what you wrote to someone and I'm just like, damn, like I'm so impressed by it, like truly, because you really but I'm reading it through my own lens of like imagining of what it would feel like to receive that message. The person on the other end, maybe either A, isn't fucking reading what you wrote, or they just see it that it's a rejection and they move the fuck on with their day because they're just at work. But I'm reading it like we all do through how would that feel if that were me? And so I'm like, wow, that's so not how I would tackle it. And then you read my messages and you're like, wow, I would have handled that really differently. And neither one of us are wrong. And I'm comfortable with the way you respond. And I would imagine, we haven't really talked about this, but like I imagine you're comfortable with the way I always respond. But it's just so interesting to me the way that we both react to this kind of thing, because the people pleaser part of me is more quickly activated, I think, than it is in you when it comes to responding to sales pitches.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yep. No, for me, I'm like, and just so you all know, warriors, like what we're talking about is like, people will email us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com and they'll be pitching us a guest.
Nice plug for that, by the way.
And the guests have nothing to do. The guests want to sell you all stuff. Like every single email we get, it's like, hey, this guest can cure anxiety. They wrote a book about it. Do you want them on your podcast? Hey, this guest has all the magic coping skills, so you'll never have anxiety again. Hey, this guest has this thing they want to sell you, right? And so I get a little annoyed because like, hey, at least know your audience that you're pitching someone to.
Yeah.
So I often respond with like, we don't look for people that sell fake cures or whatever I say. Like, like
it's all perfect. Everything you write is perfect.
Yeah. I don't actually say fake cures, but I say like, we're looking for like real and honest stories. Or sometimes they like, love your episodes, Anxiety Warriors podcast. And I'll reply back like, oh yeah, what do you like about them? Which one do you like?
I do this, or I got that from you. Like whenever I do add that to my responses, I'm like, that's Abby rubbing off on me. It's true.
Just don't be fake. Don't say you like our podcast and you've listened to our episodes if you haven't. That's the thing.
Agreed.
Just don't do that. We see through the fakeness, and when you're fake, we don't want you.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody wants you. Nobody wants anyone that's fake.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So I want to know, how any of this, I know some of it resonates because we talk about this shit all the time. But
Mhm.
like I want to know from your perspective just about these topics, about boundaries, about people pleasing.
Yeah.
Have these topics shown up for you in any way in the
Yes,
last
in
like several months?
different ways. So
Yeah.
one short story. I can't remember if I shared this, so I'm only going to make it short because I feel like I've shared this at some point. But this random woman reached out to me once, saying she wanted a mentor with me at one of the schools I teach in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, what do you want to learn? What do and it was like such a random request. And ultimately it was like her stepkid goes to the school and she wanted to feel more connected to her stepkid. And I was like, is your stepkid in my class? And she was like, no. Right. So, and then she was like, well, do you have curriculum? Right. So I think what she wanted to do was start a kids yoga class, but didn't know where to start. So I like had a chat with her and instantly I knew that she was just trying to get stuff from me. Right.
Yeah.
She's never met me. She didn't sign her stepkid up for my class. Right. Again, it was like
Mhm.
this cold emailing because she saw that I taught yoga there. And so I told her about my mentorship program and helping people become kids yoga teachers. And she was like, well, do you ever have subs? And I said, no. I was like, because if you don't understand the methodology in which I teach in,
Yeah.
it's not going to be like aligned with teaching the kids. So no, I'd rather cancel a class than have a sub. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know this woman. I don't, why am I going to trust some stranger with my students?
Right. You have to
Anyway,
protect your kids in your class.
so I did give her time, right? I mean, she had like reached out to another yoga teacher too, who I guess their name is Allie. And so when I called, right, she was like, Allie. And I was like, no, this is Abby, right? Like she just was like so desperate to try to get curriculum. And that's like what fell through like throughout the
Yeah.
conversation. And it's like, dude, then just buy some curriculum online. And
Right.
also it's gonna suck because the thing about teaching kids yoga is you have to be flexible with your curriculum, you know?
Yep. Yeah. You're not
Uh,
just reading from a script.
right.
Like literally
So
never. Good luck with that.
right, exactly. Like you need to feel it. You need to embody. You have to have your own practice. You have to. So I felt, I felt proud one that I was able to set that boundary because in the past when people would ask me stuff like that, I would give them so much free shit. I would give them
Mhm.
free advice. I would invite them to come and watch me teach a class. I would, I'll do all of these things when ultimately this person is just trying to like steal my shit.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
she doesn't view it as stealing the shit, but I've worked hard. I've worked hard. I've been in this field since 2012 with kids yoga. I've paid loads of money to get the education that I have in teaching kids and teaching mindfulness. I have done a ton of my own self development. Like, I've created my own curriculum. Like, how dare you just ask for my stuff?
Yeah.
It's entitled. Um,
S-
so that's like one way that I've had it. I had another woman do that to me once where she was like, hey, I was just wondering if you like know some good activities. I'm teaching in my son's class and there's some like how do you keep kids engaged because there's some kids that, I just keep kicking out of class. And I was like, well, the first thing is you don't kick kids out of class. I was like, so if you want to talk about behavior, let's set up a call and I'll coach you and consult you through it. And then she never responded.
Obviously.
So, right. But it's like, oh, you don't just give like an activity and then all the kids are engaged and happy. It's like there is so many levels to teaching kids and layers to it.
And also, it's not just asking for an activity and asking how you keep kids engaged are two very separate questions that
Mhm.
require completely different amounts of energy from you.
And not an email. It's not an email back. That's asking a lot of work on me, right?
Right.
There's someone else where they were like, oh my God, my daughter-in-law could like use so much of your like support and stuff, right? And I was like, oh, I'm happy to offer some support. So I reach out to the daughter-in-law. I'm getting the feeling she doesn't really want my support or she's shy or whatever. But like I ended up making a couple like videos and emailing them to her about things that she could do in her classroom. I've never met this person, right? She never even
Yeah.
said thank you. I'm like, no, like I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. So for
Right.
me, it's easier to just like, hey, if you're interested in a mentorship with me, I am happy to do that. right? I have people that have mentored with me. They'll tell you how it goes, right? But
Yeah.
I am not wasting my time trying to educate you on like, I don't know, 800 hours, 1,000 hours, 10,000, I don't know, 10,000,
Yeah.
right? Like of information. But the other thing I've had with boundaries when it connects to social media and people pleasing is I don't even know if it's people pleasing, but it feels people pleasing, is I remind myself that just because I make a post on Instagram or Facebook, and just because someone comments, I don't have to respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
your face.
I made a post the other day that was a little snarky on Facebook. And it pissed some people off. People were mad. All I suggested,
You don't have to tell us. Don't piss off our audience. Just kidding. No.
That if you are really outraged about something so ridiculous as like the look of something in your town, right? Like the look of a tree in your town, that you're like shouting about conspiracy theories and you're shouting about all this other like stuff that like the fact
is related to the tree.
Yeah. Like there was a tree that was put up in my hometown and like people were like so outraged over it because it didn't look like a good Christmas tree. So I just suggested if that you're so angry about it, maybe you should seek some therapy or get a hobby or learn about like negativity bias or get some coping skills. Like if you're that outraged, I mean, it was like Obama's tan suit. It was like a big nothing burger, right? And let me tell you, some people proved my point. And it took
no one wants to hear you should go get therapy. No one wants to hear that.
Angry at a tree. I told them, I said, there's other trees. Go hug some trees. Like,
I think it's hilarious. I think it's great. I'm not saying you were wrong to say that, but like, of course, people reacted negatively.
Yeah,
you were asking for it. You were asking for it.
I knew it. I knew what I was getting into. Yeah. I knew what I was getting into. But there was snark, but there was lightheartedness. I literally suggested that there's other trees in the area that they could hug, right? There's lightness in that. I suggested an improv class. I said, find the lightness in life, right? Like I said, like, if you're so upset
look
about
on the bright side,
get help. Like this is not something that should upset you. And
oh, Abby.
I know. But it was I mean, I thought it was funny. One of my friends,
you had a moment, you shared your truth.
I shared
whether
my
that
truth.
Was the best course of action can be debated, you know.
Speaking up is another thing, right? Like when to speak up and when to not on Facebook and social media. But anyway, the boundary was I didn't respond to the nasty people. And that felt so good because in the past I would have felt like, oh, let me explain, let me educate, let me point out how they're proving my point right now. Let me, and instead I just ignored their comments.
Right. You put it out there, but then you don't have to go back and be part of anything.
The conversation. Let me tell you, the majority of the people agreed with me. The majority of people were like,
there you go.
It's a dumbass tree and the tree is awesome the way it is. Like, it's so funny. Right. It's such a funny tree. I wish they kept it. But anyway.
It's such a funny tree. Oh, wait, so the tree's gone? They got rid of the tree?
Yeah, because everyone complained too much. They had to get a new tree.
Goodness. Oh, yeah. That poor tree.
I know.
It was rehomed. I hope it was rehomed.
I mean, anytime I saw pictures, it made me laugh. And
I have to see this tree now.
We have pictures.
We're gonna. This is gonna be in stories.
Okay.
When this episode airs, we will be adding the tree.
It was an amazing tree.
I love all the tree. You can't be a bad tree. Come on, people.
I know.
Trees are perfect.
I mean,
people are fucked up. Not trees.
Right. I was just trying to help. I was just trying to offer some support. If you're so upset about a tree, maybe there's some deeper things going on. Right? Like,
right. Yeah. Maybe get a grip.
Yeah. So, but anyway, the moral is that I told myself I don't have to respond to people because I knew that some people in this town are like really nasty, like they make up a lot,
Yeah.
Part of me was afraid, like, are they going to attack my business? Right.
Yeah. No, that's true. It's risky. It's risky. It's so risky. Everything we put out is risky. Everything. And so like what we're talking about, I mean, yours is different, but like,
yeah,
when it comes to boundary. Right. But when it comes to the internet, a lot of time these boundaries are not really laid out, other than the people, the rich billionaires that run the companies put out the boundaries. But yet, going back to the consistency thing, there's not a whole lot of consistency, even from the people that create this shit and
No.
that are quote unquote managing it. So they can't expect us, the lowly people that are just subscribed and using these apps and platforms or whatever, to be able to manage ourselves. Good luck with that. We're talking about billions of people across the planet using these platforms. So speaking of boundaries, right? It's so risky, everything you do and say. And I think that's part of the reason why I've like lapsed back into a people pleaser in some of these ways, because I don't want people to attack me or my business or, whatever. And so like, I get that might push people away in the opposite direction, right? Too. People want people to be super loud and opinionated and whatever. And it's like, I'm going to be loud and opinionated about the things I want to be or I feel called to be. And that's that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I love so much in what you shared, because there was a whole lot of, you mentioned feeling proud of it, right? And and that it felt good to know that you could just react and be in the moment with something you felt called to do or say or whatever, but then not have a real attachment to the outcome or, what was going to happen next or people's reactions to you or whatever.
I mean, there was anxiety. I had like 2 days straight of anxiety, just like anticipating and like
that's just sad,
waiting for the onslaught of like anger and hate.
That's how bad the internet is. So that's what you were thinking about for 2 fucking days. Like, but that's just painting the broader problem.
Right.
That the internet has. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was uncomfortable, but I was proud that I was like, I don't have to respond. Right.
Right. You offered yourself that reminder with consistency, right? Because that's what it's going to be. It's like, and sometimes we have to just make a decision and commit to it. And if we make a decision and we commit to it and it no longer serves us, we have to be open to changing it. And if our relationship changes with anything or anyone, we have to be willing to be self-reflective on that. Right. And maybe either recommit to the boundary or deciding if it's time to just shift the boundary up a little bit. Yeah, I'm actually, I don't want it to be like, oh, like I've lapsed and that's it. Although it could be, part of me feels like pulled to like offer the silver lining. And so for me, I think the silver lining is just noticing that I've lapsed a little bit when it comes to maintaining and being consistent with my own boundaries.
Yeah.
And when it comes to I don't want to say not caring what other people think of me or whatever, because it sounds so juvenile, but like there are flavors of that, I think, in what I'm feeling. It's just kind of like I've lapsed in my understanding that I don't need to please other people in order to justify my existence or my feelings or whatever.
Yes.
And so I want to say that I feel like it's a positive sign for me that I have awareness of it. And so now I can start from that place and say, okay, now I need to start troubleshooting the ways that I'm going to tackle this now that I've come to this realization that I've been dealing with this for the last few months and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so time to sit down and think about it.
Right.
Pull out the journal and work on it. Right. So,
I mean, these things change as we change. So when things are changing, we also have to like update the system of our boundaries or update the people pleasing, or, it shows up in new and different ways, or, it's, was it shape-shifting?
From Becky? Yes.
Yeah.
Shape-shifting.
Yeah. So you got to like get ready for the new shape. It's like, oh, okay, this is a new way I can be consistent in boundaries, or this is how I want to change the boundaries, or this,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think warriors, what we're trying to say is like boundaries are essential, right? Boundaries are healthy. They are different for me. They're different for you. They're different for everyone that lives. And it's normal for you to sort of feel some anxiety or some worry around seeming like you're unwavering or unfriendly or something or whatever based on those boundaries that you put up. But I think at the end of the day, those boundaries are going to wind up weeding out the people and the relationships in your life that are no good,
Yeah.
that were never good or are no longer good. They're going to show you when it's time to move away from folks,
Mhm.
when it's time to show respect for folks, right? Like
Mhm.
I know when someone sets boundaries and because I find because I feel wind up feeling safer within them, I wind up being attracted to those people more
Yeah.
often than not because they know they are more secure. They know who they are.
Mhm.
They're, feel like a landing page for me in a way. It's like, okay, that's a good thing. That's something I want to aspire to continue to be better at.
Yeah.
And we have to look at it as like a form of self-love, right? Like,
Right.
or at least
Right.
that's
We're
how I want to
pleasing
look at it.
us. Right.
Yes.
We're people pleasing to us instead. But like, I
Yes.
mean, I just want to say, like, you and I know people in our field that I'm sure that when we think of boundaries, they come to mind. Right. And like, I like that. Right. I might not know them that well in our field, but like, you can feel the people that are clear with their expectations and they set the boundaries. And you're like, okay, I understand.
Yes. Right.
Right. Like, I understand how we're going to interact. And for me,
Yeah.
again, I feel safer. Right.
Yes.
Like, I feel like, okay, I'm clear. You're clear.
Right.
Like, okay, we can move forward now
Yeah.
rather than like wishy washy, like, oh, can I ask this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we do this? Right. Like,
Right. And it doesn't require an unkindness,
right.
and like I would implore any of the warriors that might feel anything when you hear us talk about this. And if it feels triggering to you, that might be a signal that it's time to pause and reflect on it for yourself.
Yeah.
If the idea of people setting a boundary with you or stating their expectations clearly feels uncomfortable, or your automatic reaction is to feel like that person is unfriendly or nasty or not helpful, then I'm not saying I'm not saying like, hey, gaslight yourself and be like, I must be crazy. It could be that, whatever it is that their expectations are unreasonable to you, but that doesn't mean that they're bad, right? It
Right.
just means that they're not good for you, which means it's time to move on, move
Yeah.
along. There's a
Right.
million other people out there. Yeah, love it. All right, so warriors, we are hopeful that you can reflect on your relationships to these topics. If
Mhm.
you were with us from those early days, way back in the beginning, or literally within our first like 30 episodes where we talked about these topics, um, that means you've been on this ride with us for a long time. And we're guessing that you've had some changes to your boundaries and the way you create them, the way you maintain them. Maybe you are feeling strong in your being a recovering people pleaser. Maybe you're noticing lapses in your own life as well, like I am. And just know that it's okay and that you can take this time right now to reflect on it, maybe in a journal, maybe in meditation, maybe have a conversation with a fellow warrior about how this is showing up for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Abby, do you have a win of the week?
Win of the week. I do. I've been excited to tell you
Woo.
this.
I can't wait.
Okay. So, I've been working on a kid's book for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what happened was I went through this like 10-week online course thing about children's book publishing and stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end, you get a mentor for one session and you send them your manuscript and they give you feedback. And it was a really good session, but I realized there were some things that have to be like changed, right?
Okay.
Like she gave really good feedback without telling me what to do. And then I had, oh, like this is great. I get it. And then I didn't work on it. And just like has been sitting there. So there's this, have you heard of, I'm going to say it wrong because of my brain, but SCBWI?
Yes. Yeah.
SCBI?
Oh God, I don't know. It's too many letters. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, SCBWI. That's what it is.
Okay.
SCBWI. Yeah. It's like Society of Children's
Books,
Writers, Illustrators.
Yes.
Okay.
Writers, illustrators. Yes, that's it.
So they have like their one large one, and then they have like different areas, and they have a Colorado like Rocky Mountain area group, sect, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing a like mentorship program that you have to apply to and everything. And it's all like blind. Like you apply and you pick the people that you would want to mentor you if you know, and then they read your manuscript. They don't get your name or anything. And you have to give some of your background. And mostly they were looking for people that had already published in some form, self-published or gotten something published and had like some manuscripts and everything.
Okay.
So I applied and I picked 2 people out of like a multitude of people, like maybe like 20 or 25 that I would want to work with. Right. And some of them only did children's books. Some of them only did like graphic novels. Some of them did all the, right. So it's not, there was 2 I felt like, okay, they're cool. And one of them is like a professor at a college that teaches like psychology, you know, like he sounds really cool. Anyway, so you apply and I just found out that I got accepted into the mentorship program.
Yay.
Yeah. Like I'm really, really excited. So like he read my manuscript, not knowing me, not knowing anything about me. And he said, yes, I want to work with this person to help them get it into shape to either submit to be published or to self-publish.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
I know.
That is really cool. So when does that like start?
So I had to email him yesterday and now
Okay.
the ball gets rolling, but it doesn't really start until like January.
Yay, that is crazy.
I
So
know.
you were selected out of like hundreds of people or
I
like,
think so. I have no idea how many people applied. I have no idea.
okay. And each
Right.
mentor only takes like a couple people
I have no
or,
idea.
oh, you don't know.
I need
Okay.
the numbers.
Got it. But
yeah.
that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
mentors are so, I mean, you know, you're a mentor, you're a
Mhm.
I've had many myself. And it's the having that community, that accountability
Mhm.
partner,
He
someone
lives in
that's
this area.
objective, right? So you can meet in person.
He's published books. Like that's part of it is the mentors all have published books. And I've seen his books and like
Okay.
I've seen like one of them like online and stuff. And that like that felt like it vibed with me. And
Yeah. Children's
Right?
books?
yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good.
And he's into rhyme, I'm into rhyme, right? And so like
Yeah.
in it, like, you know, I say like the things like in my at the end of my manuscript, like I do like the author statement, like, and part of that's like, where am I in my manuscript? Where do I see it going? What do I see it
Mhm.
being like? And so I like explain some of the parts that I need to work more on. And
Yeah.
he picked me.
Yay. And he was one of the ones you
He
wanted.
picked me, right? Like he read
Aw.
my manuscript and wanted to work with me. Like, yeah.
I mean, he's not a dum-dum, clearly, is what we're learning.
Yeah, but I could be a shitty writer, you know? Like
You're not. We've been over this, but anyway,
Yeah.
you're gonna call me biased. It's fine. But I'm right. I'm always right. I'm not always right, warriors, but I'm right about this.
So yeah,
That's awesome.
that's my
That's
win.
a huge win. Huge
I'm excited
win.
to see how it goes.
It's gonna go well.
Mhm.
It's decidedly so. I just shook my magic 8 ball in my mind,
Okay.
and it's going to go well.
It's gonna go well.
It's going to go well. Make it so. I love it. I love it.
Thanks.
All right, warriors. If you'd like to connect with us for any reason, you can join us over on Instagram. We're at Anxiety Warriors Podcast, or you can feel free to shoot us an email at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com to shout out your wins of the week, share topic ideas with us, or if you think you'd be a great fit as a guest on our show, let's get you on the calendar. Let's help you tell your anxiety journey. No story too big or too small for us. We love them all equally. Please take 2 seconds and smash that 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're tuning in right now. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have all of our episodes uploaded for you all over there. And then hop on into our show notes and click our Threadless merch shop link. You can get some amazing Anxiety Warriors podcast stuff on everything from t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, journals, yoga mats, you name it. You can get something with our logos on it. To help support the work that we're doing and hopefully can keep doing because it brings us so much joy.
Yes. Well, thank you all so much for going on this journey with us. We are so grateful that we get to do this with y'all.
Till next time.